it is, wherever you are in the cosmos today. I want to thank you all for showing up. Thanks for supporting the channel, and thanks for all those likes, shares, subscribes. Today we're going to be reading a chapter, but before we get into that, I think I'm going to be pulling a message from the villains, the Disney Villains Tarot deck that I've got here. I feel like on theme here. I think that the last period of time I haven't been harping as much on the fact that I came to this space through a process of reckoning and humiliation and coming to terms with my own violently codependent and dishonest, especially foundationally, anybody who doesn't intend to mislead people, they're usually lying to themselves, right? I know some people that say it as buying their own BS, but I feel like that's very unnecessarily judgmental. We're all in a process here. And so I am here to help guide people through challenges and move towards greater integration, not because I'm some kind of perfect person that you should aspire to become, but more because I understand the process of coming to terms with and integrating those shadow sides of yourself that you would want to hide from other people because you don't believe that they are going to be able to understand why you do the things that you do, aren't going to be able to see you in context. And I think everybody worries about that to a certain extent because it's true. People are not going to see you correctly. And depending on our childhoods and our sense of identity, and we'll have varying reactions to that, conscious and subconscious. And so I just really wanted to go back to the point that I came here as a liar and a deceiver and a problem. Nobody ever goes into tarot and divination land and gets anything beneficial out of it without going through a process of serious humiliation, not just to external people and things outside of yourself, but that developing that intimacy and that humiliation within yourself to be able to look at things from all different sides without getting overwhelmed by the emotions to such an extent that those emotions start driving your behavior in ways that are not in alignment with your intentions. Because we all have the tendency to do that. And so it's all a matter of degree. And we have to be very patient and forgiving with ourselves, and we have to be very honest with ourselves if we want to move forward in this work. Otherwise, life is just a facade and a reaction. And that's how people end up in villain spaces. There's a lot more to it than that. Oh, I got the Hermit and the Fool out here. I don't actually know which character this Hermit is. If you know Disney more than me, feel free to drop it down below and enlighten us here. But just the Hermit and the Fool in combination is very interesting. Is a very interesting combination. It may tie into the chapter in some particular way that will be personal to you or that I'll reflect on at the end. But really I just see this as a nod to like a period of introspection, and I mean doing this process of shadow work and creating a safe space to the extent that you're able to sit with your shame and integrate it in a way that's like not punitive and competitive and punishing and hierarchical, coming to a place of integration and balance within yourself. And the hermit energy is you going into the dark, going into the cave to find that light, to find that gold within your shadow. And when you find that light, that sparks this almost involuntary process of like rebirth. And so really I'm just in general getting the energy of a long period of introspection followed by like the beginning of a creative endeavor, maybe like professional or relational, but definitely creative in some way. Like tapping into your inner child from a place that, you know, like creating a container for your inner child. That is the Hermit, the Fool. Creating a container. King of Swords, that's the truth. Oh, and who is this? I think this is Scar from the Lion King. Let me know if you recognize that one. The Scar from Lion King is a theme all unto itself. Knight of Coins. Yeah. Slowly, diligently working to uncover the truth, and in doing so, opening up space for new creative endeavors to flourish and do their thing. And the chapter that I'm going to be reading from today is chapter 25. It's called Bugs, and it is very short. So if you want to grab some tea, go for it, but I don't feel like it'll be particularly necessary. Pardon me. Chapter 25, Bugs. That day, I had decided to join in Anastasia's morning routine. Everything went fine at first. I stood under the tree and touched various little shoots. She kept telling me different herbs, and then I lay down beside her on the grass. We were both completely naked, but even I wasn't cold. That might have been, of course, due to my running through the forest with her. I was in a splendid mood. I felt a sense of lightness, and not just physically, but inside me as well. It all started when I felt a pinching sensation on my thigh. I raised my head and saw a small army of bugs crawling along my thigh and lower leg, including ants and some sort of beetle. I lifted my arm to swat them, but to no avail. Anastasia seized my arm in midair and held it, saying, "Do not touch them." Then she got up on her knees in front of me, bent over, and pinned my other hand to the ground. I lay there as if crucified. I tried to free my arms but couldn't. I felt that was an impossibility. Then I tried to jerk myself free with great effort. She kept restraining me with very little effort, her smile never fading from her face. And still my body felt more and more crawling things, all tickling, biting, and pinching, and I came to the conclusion that they were starting to eat me alive. I was in her hands, both literally and figuratively. Taking stock of the situation, I realized that nobody knew where I was. Nobody would come here looking for me. And if they should happen to wander by, they would see my picked over bones, indeed if they saw any bones at all. And all sorts of things flashed through my head at that moment. And this was no doubt the reason my instinct for self-preservation kicked in, dictating the only feasible course of action in the situation. In desperation, I sunk my teeth with all my might into Anastasia's bare chest at the same time jerking my head from side to side. Upon hearing her scream, I immediately loosened my grip on her chest. Anastasia loosened her hold, jumped up, one hand holding on, the other stretched upward, waving. She tried to smile. I too jumped up and shouted at her, feverishly brushing the crawling things off my body. You wanted to feed me to those vermin, you forest witch. Well, I don't give in that easily. She continued waving and responding with a forced smile to the elements of nature around her, which had begun reacting warily to her situation. Anastasia looked at me and slowly, not with her usually sprightly gait, walked towards the lake, her head bowed. I kept standing in the same spot for some time, thinking what I should do next. Return to the riverbank? But how would I find a way? Follow Anastasia? But what would be the point? Nevertheless, I headed for the lake shore. Anastasia was sitting on the shore, rubbing tufts of grass between the palms of her hands and dabbing its juice on the parts of her chest where a huge bruise left by my bite was clearly visible. It was probably very painful for her, but what had been her thought in attempting to restrain me? I hovered around her for a little while before asking, "Does it hurt?" Without turning her head, she replied, "It hurts more inside." And she silently continued rubbing in the juice from the tufts of grass. Why were you thinking to play tricks on me? I was trying to be helpful. The pores of your skin are all plugged up. They cannot breathe. The little bugs would have cleaned them out. It is not that painful. In fact, it is rather pleasant. And the snake I saw, wasn't it touching my leg with its stinger? It was not doing you any harm. Even if it had released its venom, it would have been only on the surface, and I would have rubbed it in at once. The skin and muscles on your heel are deteriorating. That's on account of the car accident, I said. For a time, neither of us spoke. The whole situation felt rather silly. Not really knowing what to say, I asked her, "What happened? Why did not that invisible someone help you again as before when I lost consciousness?" The reason he did not help was that I was smiling. And when you began biting me, I tried to smile. I began to feel guilty toward her. Picking up a tuft of grass, I rubbed it between my hands as hard as I could, then knelt down in front of her and began dabbing her bruise with my moistened palms. We have, I believe, just a few chapters left. We have Dreams, Creating the Future. We have Across the Dark Forces Window of Time. We have Strong People. And Who Are You, Anastasia? Yeah. So I believe we'll get through those next 4 chapters this week. We've got a new moon in Pisces, I believe, coming up shortly. I've been thinking about doing a pick a card for that, so we'll see how my, schedule and availability works out with all of that, but that would be very lovely. I'm going to actually pull an herbiary because I was called to, and then I questioned it, and then I was like, why did I question that? Create space. raspberry. Yeah, raspberry may be a significant like confirmation for you, but also is about making space, hold space within. Is there room for you in your mind and heart, or are your thoughts filled with the needs and schedules of others? Do you have guilt or other toxic thoughts popping up when you contemplate claiming space, mental, physical, or emotional, for yourself? Are you fearful of taking up too much space intellectually or physically? Okay, right. This is a very interesting chapter because it's like, it kind of brings up to the surface how consent and coercion and like malicious intention and all of this stuff is viewed is because in my mind, Anastasia is taking up a lot of space just by existing, and she exists in the middle of the woods, not really bothering anybody on a day-to-day basis. But if she has any kind of interaction with anybody for any extended period of time, then just her thinking the thoughts that she has, feeling the feelings that she has, saying the words that represent those, taking the actions that represent those, she is viewed as being too much. She is viewed as being problematic. She is viewed as taking up too much space. She is viewed as like, why do you have to do things like this? And for one, it is in her nature, and it is part of her lineage, and it is part of her experience, and like there are a lot of reasons why she is the way that she is, but for some reason the people that she generally tends to come across interpret her nature as like being, I don't know if attention seeking is the right word, but it's like that concept of when somebody does something weird just for the sake of being contrarian, yeah. And she's very much not trying to be contrarian. She's very much trying to take her understanding and her culture and her belief system and her mindset and meet people where they're at and find this middle ground. But because a lot of the people that she interacts with are for some reason on so similar of a path and a frequency and an experience, they get used to having that familiarity. And so they respond to this person that's outside of their realm, like outside of their comfort zone, just existing as like actively aggravating them, actively causing them problems. But she didn't go out and initiate anything. She's not being malicious. She did pin Vladimir down on the ground when he clearly wasn't into that, which is a gray area. And it speaks to the fact that we're all sometimes Anastasia and we're all sometimes Vladimir, where we know something, we believe something, we feel something so strongly that we believe that disrespecting and disregarding other people's sovereignty and wishes is justified. And I think in this case, she was. But also, he was also justified because he had no reason to truly understand where she was coming from at the time. So there are layers to it, and it's all about perception, and you could argue both positions, and and that's always the case. That's how the world works. So you could respond to that by trying to take up as little space as possible, but there are people who will respond to that by taking up as much space as possible to protect, defend, to be proactive, like to get that before I lose it, to maintain it. And you may try to release all attachment to having any power, any control, or any physical or intellectual impact. You might back away from all of that because you want to minimize that competition. And some people also want to minimize that competition in that they want to win and they don't want to compete. They want to gain and they don't want to struggle and suffer and fail. And so in falling back, you are allowing other people to come forward, and like the worst kinds of people, the kinds of people that really live in a sense of entitlement. So obviously there's balance in all things, but for this particular collective today, where it's finding you right now, you are being encouraged to get out of this hermit energy that you have gained a lot from, but to step out into a brand new adventure and to take up space physically, intellectually, etc., wherever you find yourself, because that is going to create the balance and the equilibrium in the ecosystem wherever you find yourself. All right. I look forward to seeing y'all for the next chapter. Thank you so much for being here today. Love, light, peace, and personal responsibility. I will see you next time.